Hi, welcome back to Life is a Treasure podcast. I'm your hostess, Michelle Durand, and this is episode number 24. And today I have a very special guest. She's also my daughter, Courtney Sprawls. Courtney is a certified health and wellness coach, certified personal trainer, certified yoga teacher, and she has a bachelor's degree in health psychology. Courtney is also the founder of Mind, Body, Mystic, with the mission to help people uncover the layers that are holding them back from optimizing their health, relationships, and their lives. In her practice as a holistic wellness coach, she offers guidance, spiritual rituals, and mindfulness practices to help people illuminate their truth inside of themselves, to connect with their intuition, which allows them to see themselves as the radiant gem that they are. She aims to empower them to have the ability and confidence to heal by giving them spiritual support, knowledge, and practical tools to do so. Courtney believes and she teaches that we are all worthy and deserving of an abundant life that brings us unlimited joy. In this episode, Courtney will be sharing her experiences and journey that led her to where she is today. You will learn so much by listening to her wisdom and her knowledge. She also invites you to join her online in her yoga classes. I'll have the links in the show notes along with a great book recommendation that she has. So get comfy and let's listen to Courtney's story and how yoga and meditation can help you to create a life that you treasure. Hi, Courtney. Welcome to Life is a Treasure podcast.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So happy to have you here. As I shared in the intro, Courtney is my special daughter. I love her so much, and I'm just so thrilled to have her here to share her wisdom and her expertise and her part of her life journey. Courtney is the founder of Mind, Body, Mystic. She has a website, themindbodymystic.com, which I'll have in the show notes. And I just wanted to ask you, Courtney, why did you come up with the name Mind, Body, Mystic?
So, I've been through quite a journey of different avenues and different realms, mostly focusing on the mind and the body for most of my life. But eventually, once I branched out of just the physical and the mental practice, I expanded into a more spiritual practice, which the mind body mystic came to me kind of overnight. It was one of those things I woke up and I felt like it was right. It aligned with how I feel about my practice, and it best explains how I can help people in a simple way that people understand right when they hear it. So mind, body, mystic gives you those three components: the mental, the physical, and the spiritual aspects.
Oh, I love that so much. So you said in your practice, what do you mean when you say in your practice?
So I don't think anything is concrete. Everything we do is a practice. So physical exercise would be a practice of moving the body. Mental exercise, whether it's reading or having a stimulating conversation, is something that we are always getting better at. And sometimes there's an ebb and a flow where we backtrack, and sometimes we have those stagnant times where our mind feels a little bit more cloudy, or there's those moments of clarity where you feel just so aligned. And that is a continued practice. We could talk a little bit about the time we're in right now. It feels like so much space right now to practice, but sometimes practicing doesn't always mean there's a goal. It's a thing that you continue to do to feel some sense of openness. So when you have that physical and mental practice, there's also that spiritual component of a practice where you show up on like a yoga mat, for example. You're getting that physical, that mental, and that spiritual aspect, and all of it is something that you have to continue to practice in order to not necessarily elevate, but just to understand yourself better.
So do you do yoga every day?
No, just like anything, I think it's important to listen to what your body needs that day. I think yoga is a beautiful practice that you can do every day. I personally get hung up on the idea that something needs to be done excessively. I've been through periods of my time of my life where I've obsessed and done things in excess, and that led to defeat for me. So in my yoga practice, yoga is not necessarily just movement. It has a lot of components. So just going on a mindful walk can be considered yoga. And I think a lot of times, especially in the Western world, yoga is just identified with strenuous movement or flexibility or stretching, when really it can be so much different than that. And it doesn't have to necessarily include vigorous exercise to be a yoga practice. If anything, a yogi is someone who shows up and continues to do the work and practice their, learning the knowledge of yoga and the background, and just finding clarity of mind is a yoga practice in itself. So I guess technically, yeah, I do yoga every day, but I don't do the full on vigorous asana, which is the movement of yoga, every day.
Wow, you're so educated in yoga. And I know that that has not always been your journey. You had said earlier that you at one time were excessive with like more of the mind and the body. So what led you to your path of discovering yoga, and how yoga was such a much better practice for you than what you were doing in the past? Like, you want to share a little bit about what you used to do that was not healthy for you compared to where you are now?
Yeah. So, as you know, we've always been surrounded by gyms my whole life.
Mhm.
And in high school, I got into bad patterns of food, eating foods that weren't serving my body, doing practices that weren't serving my body. Um, Eventually, once I moved to California, I got caught up in the scene of everything. So, looking a certain way, acting a certain way, being a certain way. And it led me into this self destructive pattern of exercise and taking it to an extreme where I thought was healthy because that's the image that society painted at the time. So, from 2011 until about 2016, I was doing fitness competitions. So every year I competed in a fitness competition. I often had coaches that guided me the best way they knew how, but didn't serve my body because I wasn't listening to what my intelligent body was telling me. And I clouded my mind so much that I couldn't even hear the signals that my body was telling me at the time. So, what that looked like at first was just me running from my house to the school, which was about 2 miles uphill. And it became this goal getting, hustle mentality, which was so popular in that time frame. And it eventually led into me getting a job at a local gym. And in that gym, I was surrounded by people who were in the bodybuilding scene, or who were just there to better themselves, or those people who were maybe a little more excessive with their exercise. And I was attracted to that. So I ended up competing. And what that looked like with my diet, my nutrition, for example, was eating about 800 calories a day, which is way too low for anyone. I was working out 2 to 3 hours each day. I was chasing this ideal, so much to the point where I had great mental discipline and I was able to really focus and hone in to my goal. But that goal was clouding my perception of what was truly health. So I ended up doing that for 4 years and met my partner through bodybuilding and fitness, which just exacerbated the issue. We both got into this cycle of eating too few calories and exercising way too much. And I was, squatting 300 pounds and deadlifting up to that amount as well. And just chasing this idea of strength, which felt empowering for me at the time. Like picking up a heavy bar, doing a chest press with weight that's heavier than you are. It feels like this this power that no one else or nothing else can give you. It was this idea that, this bar is so heavy, it can crack, it can kill me. And I'm pushing it and putting it away, and I have control over that. So it became this control thing, this negative relationship to control, which I think a lot of us deal with in this day and age, especially. So I was able to control my food. I was able to control my workouts. I had the education to do that since I was a personal trainer then at the time. I got just so caught up in the world of bodybuilding and exercise that it completely threw off my hormones. The lack of food, the lack of nutrients, the over excessive exercising, all just not only deteriorated my body and made me small physically, but it also made me small emotionally and mentally and spiritually as well. So I found myself crying every day. My hormones were out of whack. I was teaching a message to my clients that was the only thing that I knew at the time, and I did my best, and unfortunately people followed me, and I had a really big following in that way. But eventually, once I got my platform built up and once I had a big clientele, I went into my 4th bodybuilding competition and completely had a breakdown and realized that 7 grams of fat each day wasn't sustaining my vitality in my life. And I wasn't feeling mentally clear, physically clear. I wasn't able to even work up to that point because I was so exhausted. And so it just completely destructed me, and I didn't have control anymore. So once that happened, it was 2016 in October, about that time, I woke up, and that's just how I am. I'm learning. I wake up and I have these big life-changing epiphanies, and I went into work and I said, I'm not doing this anymore. That was my last fitness competition. That's my last clients I'm going to work with. I need to start fresh. I need to speak a new message. I need to work with clients that are, even working with the same clients and giving them a different message, but I needed to start fresh. So from that point in 2016, I started just practicing yoga, and I stopped completely with the bodybuilding. I didn't do any more cardio. I didn't lift any more heavy weights. Unfortunately, I put myself so low into a deficit of calories and so extreme with exercise that I ended up gaining 20 pounds a week until I was just way heavier than I've ever been used to. And I realized, okay, obviously my body's retaliating. It was holding on for dear life. And now this is its way to reach homeostasis, which is that balance. So I went to my first spiritual retreat, you could say, in October at Kripalu in Massachusetts, and it was great. It was very eye-opening. I had a guide, Madeline Moon. She was my coach at the time. She opened my eyes to the orthorexic, which is like the obsessive, healthy behavior that people get into. You could call it a disordered way of eating or acting. And so she guided me out of that path into a more holistic approach to wellness. And at that time, I started realizing that physical coaching wasn't necessarily the only thing that I was successful at. I was able to find that emotional part of me and that feminine essence that I've covered up for so long, since I lived so much of my life in the masculine. And then from that point, 2016 to now, I've gone on several yoga retreats and learned that exercise isn't a negative thing. For a while, I did believe it was, since it destroyed me in a way. But I learned that I can work out when my body feels it needs to. I need to exert the amount of energy that my body's willing to give, not over exceed that. So some days I wake up and it's a chill day. I'm feeling light. I might feel anxious that morning. Yoga would be my practice. Some days I wake up, I'm feeling energized and ready to take on the day. Then more high intensity interval training might be my choice. I still continued to teach fitness and, approached it from a different standpoint, adding in those holistic components and focusing more on overall wellness rather than just physical health. And so from there, I was able to start exploring that more yogic side of me, having mentors that taught me that way. And now I have all of those components and all of those tools in my tool belt that I use in my day-to-day.
Wow, what a journey. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think it's so important. And I'm just amazed at your self-awareness. Like a lot of people don't realize how much intuition and awareness that we actually have inside of us. And for you to express that is just amazing. And thank you. I know that that journey has been, like you said, a lot of tears and a lot of learning and a lot of lessons, but I also see that so many beautiful, wonderful people have been put in your path to guide and lead you to where you are. And I know that you did something that is a dream for not only yourself, but many people, many women desire to go to Bali, Indonesia. So would you like to share a little bit about your idea and to go to Bali? As you know, most people may not know, you were raised pretty much in Indonesia. So would you like to share a little bit about how that came about and you made that decision to actually go to Bali, and as scary as it was, just share a little bit about your journey of that, taking that trip to Bali to learn to become a yoga instructor there.
Yeah. When I was making my transition from bodybuilding to yoga, I had this amazing yoga mentor. Her name is Mekwasa. She was watching my movement, and I had physical body awareness because I practiced that for so long and I taught that in my career. And she came up to me in 2016 and said, I think you should go and get certified through yoga. And I told her, I'm not ready to step into a new way of teaching. I'm just trying to take a break right now from all forms of physical teaching. I need to learn my own practice before I start teaching that to others. And she said, yeah, I fully understand that. I'm not talking about you teaching to other people. I'm talking about you going through the motions of the yoga teacher training because it's transformative and life-changing, and it'll help you better understand your body and your own practice. And so I really took that to heart and I looked into it, and it just didn't feel like the right time. At that time, there was already so many different things that were shifting and changing in my body and in my mind. And like I said, I was switching from that masculine mindset to more of a feminine, and eventually now feel a little bit more balanced in that way. But at the time, I knew it just wasn't right time, but I did take it to heart because I did admire her and look up to her as a mentor. So leading me until now, where in 2019, at the beginning of 2019, around March, I woke up one day and I said, okay, this feels like the right time to make that big step. The only place I would want to teach or practice yoga is in Indonesia. And I knew that, I mean, it was a little bit of a fad to do. It was something special for me to go to Bali because, like you said, we were living in Indonesia for about 8 years. And for me, that was my childhood. I lived there for the most of the beginning of my life. And let me backtrack a little bit. I went to, like I said, a few spiritual retreats. And during those times, we had deep meditations and sound baths and things that help clear the mind in order for you to see the true vision, the true dream that you might be having in your subconscious. And I had these strong senses of Indonesia, whether it was the smell or the sound of the loud streets or the language or the faces. All of those things were coming to me very clearly. And I got into this just stream of thought that I couldn't let go of. And I became a little bit obsessive about that thought, which was, before I turn 30, I'm going to go back to Indonesia. I knew I had to be alone. I have people in my life that, of course, would have loved to come with me, but it needed to be just me. I needed to take that step of bravery and courage to find my path. And so in March, like I said, I didn't have a lot of money to be spending on a trip like this. I knew it was going to cost me a lot of money, but I knew it would be rewarding for me to go in so many ways. And it was. So what I ended up doing was opening up a credit card, buying my yoga teacher training buying my yoga teacher training course with that credit card in order to get mileage to pay for my ticket to go to Indonesia. And so that was all in March, and my training was in October. So technically the end of September. And the place that I chose was called The Practice Bali. And I found that place from asking on a Facebook page that I'm a part of from another podcast. And a few people recommended The Practice Bali. And it just felt right. So, I mean, of course, I was recommended a few other places, but without doing too much research, I just felt into it and picked it. And again, didn't do much research. I didn't even know what Hatha yoga was. And I signed up for the course, didn't look at it, didn't think about it until I got on my plane and I flew over there. I didn't have any expectations really, because expectation is the root of all disappointment. So I just went with it and took it as it came. I landed at the end of September in Bali. It was, of course, amazing. It was confusing. You know, there's that cultural difference that I haven't seen in 12 years. And so at first it took a little bit of uncomfortability. There were people speaking different languages all over the world. Hardly anyone spoke, hardly anyone looked American or spoke English really when I first went. And so eventually I found my way to my Airbnb. My Airbnb lady was incredible. She helped guide me through the different areas of Canggu, which is where I went, Canggu, Bali, and began my journey there.
And what a journey you had. You would document every single day your feelings and your experiences, and it was just a beautiful experience to watch. So I just feel like that was a transforming experience for you. Would you agree that that was a life-changing experience?
Yeah. I look at it like this. That period of time, which was about 5 weeks, was my chance to completely clear the palate, so to speak. So if you think about it, I don't know if you're familiar with this, but if you go on a binge of eating a bunch of sugar and then you go onto an extreme healthy kick of eating, your palate changes, right? You have this, you're overstimulated and then you're understimulated with the different flavors. And then when you go back into the sugar again, you can taste it that much more, and it's way more, the contrast makes it that much more extreme. That's what this yoga teacher training felt like. I went from a world of chaos, overstimulation, messages of the media, too much music, in particular rap music or like toxic music that was clearing my mind or clouding my mind, really. I was overworking. I was working 7 days a week. I was overstimulated, just constantly exercising for my work. I was, seeing 200 people a day in my group exercise classes. I was just giving so much of my energy that I didn't have, which again left me to burnout, which I've done and I'm familiar with from my bodybuilding. So when I got on that plane, I was at my breaking point. I was ready to find something that was going to feel more aligned. I was familiar with that feeling because it happened in 2016, and here I am again in 2019 having that same breakdown. So I get on the plane. I was ready to surrender, give up my phone, give up all the technology. And I did keep my phone. I did document a lot of it, but I wasn't obsessively on my phone like I was before. And Octavio, my teacher at the practice, encouraged us to stay as little stimulus as possible during this time because we have so much information that we need to absorb. And if our mind is clouded with nonsense, then we're not going to have the capacity or space to take in the information that's relevant and needed at this time. I also chose to go to Bali because the practice of yoga is different on that side of the world than it is in the West. Taking a yoga teacher training in America can sometimes feel like there's not enough space to absorb the information because you're already surrounded by so much of the same day to day when you're living in your normal routine. So I chose to get out of that in order to learn better. So I was listening to some music, but I was surrounded by new friends and people from all over the world who were exposing me to more, more relaxing types of music, or more meditation, more different ways of seeing and perceiving and hearing the world. So during that time, I was understimulated by, social media and sounds and noise and chaos. So I was able to find that clarity and open mental space to absorb the information. We practice meditation every morning in order to set the tone. We use asana movement to start our day, to clear some of the blockages that might be there in order to take in. The beginning of the practice, or I keep saying the practice, but there's so many ways to use that word. The beginning of the journey in Bali, we started with a 3-day silent meditation, which again is that clearing of the palate, so to speak, and allowed us to get rid of any of the blockages that we were holding on to from our day-to-day normal life, and set the tone for this journey of 4 weeks that we were about to embark in just the knowledge and education of yoga. So I was able to have that clarity of mind in order to feel my emotions and my thoughts deeper. And I showed it through social media as a diary using collages, which is my way of expressing myself.
Yeah, I know you are very creative, and I appreciate you sharing that journey. And it just sounds like that journey and that trip to Bali was a like a purge and a cleansing time for you to kind of clear the slate and then be able to take that experience back with you. And before we get to how you have used that when you've come back to the States, would you like to share a little bit about, you said you had never heard of Hatha yoga. What is the difference? I know there's all different types of yoga. How is Hatha yoga different than like we just usually say yoga? So I know that you offer classes online and they're Hatha. So would you share a little bit about what that means?
So Hatha yoga is unique to some of the other forms of yoga because Ha and Tha are the sun and the moon.
Oh, okay.
And so Hatha practice is focused on sun, moon, and fire. And so those 3 components are what we teach, and we can teach different ones. So like, for example, at night when I teach my Hatha practice in the evening, it's a moon practice. It's towards the end of the day where the goal is to keep you more grounded and feel calm before we go into that rest period. A morning and midday might be more stimulating, like a sun or a fire practice. And there's different positions or asanas, movement, that you would do in those sequences that encourage a certain vibration or encourage a certain shift in energy or mentality that, allows you to go about your day in that way. So again, like I said, I taught a Hatha practice last night where the focus was moon and the focus is grounding. So we use forward folds and twists to get you into that rest and digest state. So Hatha is unique from other yogas because it's using asana, movement, and breath work to create this pranic energy through the spine. So Hatha practice is focused on not flexibility, but it's focused on stability, right? So if you can accumulate prana, which is life force energy, through your spine, you're clearing the blockages of nadis, which is your the things that give you life, nadis. We have about 72,000 nadis in our body. We use asana to clear the nadis, and we use breath work, pranayama, kumbhaka, to charge up and build and retain prana in our bodies so that we can use our energy, our life force energy, with purpose. So last night, for example, we used, the goal is to balance your energies, your sun and your moon, your hatha, to go about your practice with clarity so that you get into that meditative state, which is the essence of hatha yoga, meditation. So like I said at the beginning of this podcast, is yoga can be more than just movement. It's not just asana, which is movement. It's the mindfulness piece, that meditative piece. So there is the mind and there is the body connection. There's both of those components are important. Asana is your body mostly. And then chitta, your mind, is the moon component. So you got your sun and your moon. Both are important in order to find balance in that. So last night we talked about the nostrils, and I think this is a big takeaway from my yoga teacher training. Octavio was teaching your right nostril. So your right nostril is connected to your left brain and your left hemisphere, which is more of the physical, right? So your left nostril is connected to your right brain, which is more of the mental. Both of those need to be balanced in order to find that space for meditation. So with the practice we did last night, there's that combination of asana, and there's that combination of clarity of mind that then will give you that balance, which is hatha, which makes up the practice, and gives you the space to get into that pranayama, the breath work, and then transition into that meditation.
I take your classes online, and yes, I was in the class last night, and it was a full moon, and it was amazing. The practice was so calming and peaceful, yet opening, and just I slept like a baby after, and I appreciate it. You're an amazing teacher. I totally, even if I'd never done yoga, I would be able to follow what you're teaching. You're so good. You're so instructive. You're funny. Like, I love taking classes with you, and I'm so grateful that even though you live in Portland, Oregon, and I'm in Austin, Texas, I can spend that time with you and I can learn from you. I learn so much always from you. And, if anyone's listening and you might be interested in yoga, Courtney invites everyone who's listening to join us on Tuesday night is when we do the yoga that she was just explaining. And she also offers, I think, on Thursday morning. Is that right, Courtney? For now?
Yeah. And the time difference is going to be different for everyone, but
yeah,
through the Zoom link, it'll coordinate it with your time.
Yeah, and I'll have the information for you to sign up and check it out in the show notes as well. But Courtney, before we go any further, would you share what what meditation means?
That's a deep question. Meditation can mean a lot of different things for a lot of different people. For me, I got caught up in the word meditation because it sounded intimidating. It sounds like something that can't be reached, especially in the states of mind that I've been in the past. And I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this. When your mind is so crowded and chaotic, those are the times where you're like, I can't do meditation. This is impossible. I'm so far out of reach from this. Nothing sounds realistic for me, not even closing my eyes and focusing on my thoughts for 2 minutes a day. So sometimes it just feels impossible. And I didn't know what meditation was until my yoga teacher training, really. I thought I knew, but I relied so heavily on guided meditations. And I think guided meditations are incredible and amazing resource and tool. But eventually, I think it's important too to find that meditative state in your own way, which is ultimately just silence and stillness. I was taught to teach yoga in silence and allow that space for stillness, which is that stabilizing component of the mind. And so, like I said, we use asana to prepare your body and your mind for that state of meditation. I think that's an important component. I think it's not easier, that's not the right word, but I think it's helpful to do some type of movement practice, whether it's restorative or maybe more vigorous, whatever your style is that day, in order to clear the mind for preparation of yoga. And that's a big pillar of yoga is preparation. It's that setting the tone for meditation. Meditation is different for everyone, like I said, but it could be as simple as being aware, being tuned in to the life around you. So going on a walk, noticing the life that the trees are breathing, noticing the life that the birds around you are chirping. Being one with nature, I think, is the most important component of meditation, and learning that you are all on this same plane. You are all expressing pranic energy, we are all doing that. And if you have that understanding on a day-to-day and constantly throughout your life, you're going to be a little more or a lot more awake to the realities and the subtleties of life, which I think a lot of us are turned off of. Meditation is that tool to awaken your dormant energy and to create awareness of subtlety. Subtlety meaning, the relationship between you and your chakras, your system, your subtle energy, relationship to your nadis, your life force. Building that awareness is important before and after going on to the practice on the mat, because you are honing in on those small skills that make up the big picture.
Oh, I like that, because I know that's something that I really struggled with, especially for me to like clear my mind and to be quiet and to be still. And it is a practice, it's like, and it's constantly evolving, as you said. And, we get better and we learn more and we can practice, each time and get a little bit better. But, so I think too, especially with what we're dealing with right now, we're in this worldwide pandemic, and around us is a lot of news constantly. We're bombarded, everything you turn on and you look at is about what's happening in this silent virus, and that's attacking us. And naturally, we're going to feel fear. We're going to feel anxious about the future. We're going to grieve the past and the things that were. And so do you find that doing yoga and meditation is helpful during this time? Because some people might think, wow, I don't really want to be quiet and be still because my thoughts are just going to go crazy with me and it's going to make me feel more depressed and worse. Has anyone ever expressed that to you? That they're concerned that when they sit with their thoughts or sit with their feelings, because usually we stay so busy so we can avoid feeling and hearing our thoughts.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I personally am queen of numbing out and figuring, pushing my feelings aside. I do have strong awareness to my feelings, so I am, I take it when it comes, but I am human, and naturally it's easier to shut off than tune in. Yeah. So during this time, I do feel pretty grounded, to be honest. I have moments of anxiety, and it's naturally, you would think it's because of the fear and the chaos that's going on around us, but we're humans and we live off of interaction. Before all of this happened, the number one thing that kills most people is loneliness and isolation. And we're forced to do that now, which is a scary thing for a lot of us. And it's really putting things into perspective. For example, mental and physical health you're having to get a magnifying glass and look at those things deeply within yourself. And that can be scary for a lot of people. It's scary for me as well. What is my relationship to exercise? How much movement is too much? How much movement is not enough? Lack of movement, whatever you want to say. Then there's that pressure of society, which I fall into very easily, of everyone around me is meditating. I should also be meditating, but sometimes it feels out of reach and sometimes it feels like too much, or I would rather go into that numbing state and just watch TV all day than do something quote unquote productive like meditation. So I think the motivation piece is the hardest part for a lot of people. And that's what I've been hearing from a lot of my friends and the people in my community, is lacking motivation to do the things that might feel like what we need to do. But that's where I think the message is skewed. We don't need to do anything. If anything, this is our opportunity to find calm and hear the noise that we've been so used to for so long. I think this stillness is important for all of us. It's forcing us and forcing humans to re-examine their habits, our tendencies. What are your thoughts typically like? What is your numbing agent? Is it drinking? Is it getting high? Is it watching TV? What is keeping you from feeling the real things, right? So feeling the truth and the stuff we don't want to see very often. So it's forcing us to look at relationships, relationships with ourselves, relationships with the people in your house. I think last night was really important for me teaching yoga online because it showed me and the people in the space that there is community and we are all in this together. And collective energy, accumulating collective energy, feeling that life force energy through our movement practice and through our meditative practice is doing something on a global scale. It's subtle, but it's helpful. So yes, I do think meditation and yoga are purposeful during this time, but I hesitate to say that it's necessary because I don't want anyone to feel like they have to be doing anything in this time. I think it's important for each individual to feel into what they need to do to contribute to themselves and to the world around them. So staying safe, staying at home, of course, is important. Finding ways to connect via internet, via Zoom, via Skype, whatever that looks like, is also important. Looking at the relationship to self, looking at the relationship to others is important. But I don't want to fall into the trap of being a fitness instructor or a yoga teacher telling people how to do that, because everyone's practice looks different.
So true. How do you find that your practice though with yoga and meditation is helping you to feel grounded during this time?
Yeah. When I wake up and I feel anxious, I choose to go on my mat to move that energy.
Okay.
So if you think about any emotion, it's stagnant in your body typically. Movement helps to create movement, to get those wheels turning, to express themselves in the way that they might manifest. I personally choose to, move my body differently each day. I typically choose to express my mental or emotional essence differently each day. It doesn't have to look a certain way. And I think that's the biggest thing that we're seeing on social media right now is it has to look a certain way. It has to be vigorous. It has to be exertive. It has to be more, do, because we're in this time of stagnation. We don't have to overcompensate for the stillness. Because it's still doesn't mean we have to be loud. Or because it's still, we don't have to go move too much or, not enough, whatever that looks like. And so I just invite everyone to do what they're called to do. If that means you're not feeling motivated and you want to sit around, do it. Eventually that spark will come. I think that tool of checking in with your nostrils, I didn't really finish that, what I was saying earlier, is a helpful tool because if you close your eyes and just maybe even touch each nostril and breathe into each nostril, you'll see that one is more clear than the other. Every 90 minutes that changes. And when that changes, there's this shift. And that little moment of shifting between left hemisphere and right hemisphere is where you find that space. And that space feels like a blissful state where you like all of a sudden see the life around you. You're like, wow, this is so serene. This is so incredible. It's that time is where you're most clear. And that's the time where we find that space for meditation. And so when you're tuned in enough to your body and your mind, which you will get there as long as you continue to, meet your, really, there's no other better word than practice.
Yeah.
Meet your practice where it is. Then you have that clarity. So I say that to say your body is giving you the tools. Your body is expressing itself in a way that gives you the mental capacity to understand where you are in this moment.
So being present too. I think mindfulness and meditation to me also means just being in the present moment, not in the past, not in the future, but just be and be still.
Easier to say than do, right?
Yeah, totally. But I do love how your style of teaching is that you don't have a one-way cookie cutter. It's like everybody is different. And I love that you are sharing. It's so important to listen to our body. And like you said, instead of guilting ourselves, like, oh, I should have done this, I should have do this. No, listen to your body. And I love that because yes, some days we're tired and we need to give ourselves grace and just do what we feel we need to do. And I know that you have shared with me about eating intuitively. And it sounds like that's the same kind of approach, is like intuitively moving your body the way that your body needs it and give it rest when it needs. Just like you always say, now when I'm hungry, I eat. But it sounds very similar that you're now using more of that and teaching that intuitively led. And I know one thing I really love about yoga with you is that you're not pushing us to all do the same thing or to push ourselves. It's like you will always remind us like to stop if it feels uncomfortable. And I love that because that is what prevents me from injury, because I would try to do what everybody else was doing and I thought I had to do it that way. And I thought it was about flexibility, and that's a trap. And then I'd get hurt and then I couldn't go. So it was counterproductive. So I love that you share that. I think it's a very important message for women to hear, because we do put a lot of guilt on ourselves. And I just thank you for giving us that permission to listen to our body and do what our body's asking us to do. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Yeah, we are all leaders in our space. And even though I'm the one speaking in a yoga class, I'm not the leader of the space. We are all leaders. And I think giving yourself permission to rest allows other people permission to rest as well. And I am a yoga teacher in my in Oregon, and when I go and take classes, I feel guilt if I don't do the exercise the whole way through or the movement the whole way through. But oftentimes I find myself in child's pose and I'll stay there for 10 minutes. And lately I'm feeling like I'm doing the people around me more of a service, because it allows them to see that, hey, no one is better than anyone else in this room. We're all learning on our own way, and we're all leaders in our own way.
Well said. Yeah, beautiful. So Courtney, if someone wants to get in touch with you, to work with you or find out more information, can they go to your website?
Yeah, so they would go to themindbodymystic.com, or you can follow me on Instagram at csprawls. I do have a Mind Body Mystic account as well, where I post about my yoga classes coming up or just messages that are coming to me at the time.
Okay, I'll share those in the link in the show notes as well, so they'll have links to that. And how do you work with people? Just if people are wondering, like, what kind of services do you offer?
Anything I do, I meet people where they are. So, for example, my Tuesday night yoga classes, I have a variety of different people, and I choose to articulate my thoughts and my teachings in a way that is digestible to the audience. So it depends on who is coming to me and what level they might be at with their mental, physical, or spiritual clarity. And from there, we will work out a practice or a routine or a template that serves them best. So it really depends on who is coming to me and what their situation is in the current moment.
And their goals, you kind of help them to meet their goals rather than we all have the same goal. We're all going the same place, because we're not. We're all on a different journey. We're all in different places in our lives. And so it sounds like you really tailor, custom make that program that's best for them to help them reach their desired goals.
Yeah.
Okay.
And goals are always changing, and I adapt with the client.
I love that. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Courtney. Is there anything that I haven't asked you that you would like to share?
No, I think that covers it. Okay.
Well, I will have all of the information for you to get in touch with Courtney Sprawls, her website, her Instagram, and you can also join us for yoga online. It's via the internet, and you do it from the comfort of your own home. And it's a great opportunity to, like she said, to connect with people. And it just helps raise your energy, and it just gives you so much of what we're lacking right now with connection, movement, mindfulness. And I highly recommend that if you're listening, you're all invited to join us. So thank you so much, Courtney, for coming on. I know you're busy. You have a lot of things going on in your life right now. So I really appreciate your time and your expertise, your experience. You are so knowledgeable, and I just know that this is going to help so many people. And I just appreciate you so much.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
Happy to be here.
We hope that this episode has offered you some inspiration, information, and implementation ideas that you can begin today. I invite you to reach out to Courtney on her website, themindbodymystic.com, and on Instagram at csprawls, SPRAWLS, and at Mind Body Mystic on Instagram. Also, don't forget to sign up for her online yoga class or one of her at-home fitness programs at her website, themindbodymystic.com. We hope to see you there. Thank you for listening to Life is a Treasure podcast. I'm Michelle Durant, and I'd like to personally invite you to join us and continue the conversation in our free Facebook group, Life is a Treasure podcast. The link will be in the show notes at lifeisatreasure.com. You can also find my social media links on the website as well. Please reach out to me and introduce yourself. I'd love to hear where you're listening from and what your biggest takeaways have been. And as we begin to share our secrets, our stories, and our struggles, we find that others can have the courage to start sharing theirs. And this is how the healing process begins. So please help us spread the hope and the healing to others by subscribing, reviewing, and sharing this podcast. And make sure to tag me on Instagram at Michelle Marie with 2 E's, Durand, Durand, with hashtag Life is a Treasure podcast for a chance to get a shout out on the show. And also visit lifeisatreasure.com for all the resources and freebies mentioned.